In fact, the Inspector General provides a plan on what he or she would like to do in cases where we have a riot or we have a problem or a crisis of any kind. In most cases, we go with the plan that has been provided by the Inspector General. But you see, I don't know how it happens these days, but during the time I was in government, we had something we call the MAT, Multi-Agents Team, where security institutions sat together, the National Intelligence Service, the DMI, the Director of Military Intelligence, and the police would sit together and share information. The advice comes from this sharing of information because, for example, if the Inspector General does not have enough information on the terrorist sleeper cells, which will be an intelligence matter, he takes advice from there. I mean, we all take advice. Okay. We will say the minister has been advised accordingly. It means the minister has been given the information he needs to act and to do the right thing, as it were. It doesn't mean that the minister has been told, now go and clamp down on these people, or whatever the case may be. And I honestly think you are just, any reading of that statement beyond what I've explained is essentially intended to be negative, and I honestly think that's what you bring.
Now to current issues. The current hold of the office that you held at the time, just last week, I'm sure you heard what he said in Kikuyu, that any protester approaching or any person approaching a police station, shoot them. Is this an order you would give, whether publicly or quietly?
First of all, I don't want to pass judgment on my successors in the ministry. In fact, the challenge you usually have when you have served in government, in particular positions and so on, is to keep the discipline and the respect for your successors and those who come after you.
Yeah.
I don't know how they operate, so I don't want to pass judgment on them. But every time we had a very seamless relationship between the security sector and the legal advisory services of government. Every time we acted or did anything, we always consulted with the Office of the Attorney General. There are cases without number that I remember in government when I would have liked to do certain things, but the Honorable Attorney General, first Professor Githu Muigai, and later on retired Justice Kiara Kariuki, would say you can't do this because you have no powers to do this kind of thing. Yeah, and we always consulted with the Office of the Attorney General. And actually, even where we went out, because sometimes, when you're out there in the field as a cabinet minister, you can take some decisions on the spur of the moment. And when later on, sometimes you're out there in the field, you're not even with the legal people and so on and so forth. When later on, it's discovered that, or when you come back to the office and even your legal team in the office tells you, Minister, this cannot work the way you did and so on, logically, or the Attorney General himself actually calls you up when they see it and they tell you this is it, what you said at this particular place or what you did at this particular place is wrong, and you don't have powers to do that kind of thing under the law. If that happens, as it were, they revise the position, as it were, because people need to understand one thing: public officials are human beings; they are not God. You can make mistakes, as it were. So if the answer you want from me is yes or no, I wouldn't make that kind of order. Or saying shoot, kill, or whatever the case may be. But you see, again, as I said, I can't pass judgment on a context on which I don't have full facts about, as it were.
All right. What are your thoughts about, because we've seen a trend, guns are being deployed. We don't know by who, but we have seen them, especially in protests.
On this particular matter, in terms of security, the challenge we have in our country overall, politically speaking, is that there's a very low level of accountability in our political practice in the country. And what I mean by a low level of accountability is this: in addition to deployment of guns or whatever it is, as it were, the speech that we see from leaders and various actors within the political environment is sometimes very frustrating, as it were. On the case of deployment of guns, the government has got sufficient machinery and a capability to address this particular issue. Honestly speaking, if I've explained this for a moment, I take it that this has not changed very much. In Nairobi, for example, we have the Nairobi security team, which is led by the regional commissioner in Nairobi. It brings the county police commander, the county DC officers and NIs and everybody and so on. I cannot imagine actually that this security infrastructure does not know that some is hiring or training goons to bring them to town to cause mayhem. I cannot imagine that that's the case. And if they have the information, then they should go forward and act. What I find very interesting, in my view, and if I may be very frank with you, is making allegations are being made by public officials. They are the custodians of information because they're the ones who have the instruments of power and the capacity to find out who is doing what. You know, the way the National Intelligence Service works, I can't carry guns, drive with guns from Kisii to Nairobi in my car, or have people bringing guns to me, and the National Intelligence Service does not know that Matiang'I is receiving guns or is engaged with some rebel guys in some corner and they're supplying guns. And then for them to wait until a particular time, then they say, oh, Matiang'I could be having guns. I find that very strange. Where were they when that was happening? And then it's their responsibility to know that the way this fellow is behaving, he normally has night meetings with people and he's recruiting these guns and so on. I don't want to pretend. I know for sure that the National Intelligence Service listens to our phone calls and so on and so forth. This happens. They have ways of collecting intelligence. So how is it that if they know that some is recruiting goons from Roysambu to bring them to Nairobi, why wait until the goons get to Nairobi? Because you have the capacity, you have the police in Roysambu, you will know that these people are being hired, they're being recruited in this particular house. So you go there and disrupt the matter. That is part of the security work. So again, on this particular matter, my honest view is that if indeed goons were hired by an individual and the government has got evidence that that has been done, then honestly speaking, it is right to act on that particular matter. But when action is not taken, as if I hired goons, for example, if there was a demonstration in Nairobi and I hired goons, myself, Fred Matiang'I, I hired goons, how can the government don't know that I'm trying to hire goons? And there is one of the reasons why I will not do it is because I know that by the second day, the government will know. They can even go trace money. I have moved money from this account. I've been paid by so and so and so on and so forth. They can trace that money. So my view is, if that has happened, and I've seen that being reported widely and so on and so forth, the question I ask is this. You know, we can engage in gossip, hearsay, he said this, I said, they allege, and so on. Someone needs to act. Okay. And then once action has been taken, we will all have facts to deal with. Now,
for the sake of accountability, there's something you said in September 2017. It was in the lead up to the repeat presidential election. You were in Kisii, South Mugirango, and you said that anyone who is joking does not know Chinkororo. I am the Nkororo from this place. I am in charge of security. The youth who are here, if anyone tries to block you from voting, I can order the police to look aside and you rough them up.
That's a nonsensical thing. I can tell you it's a nonsensical thing that was reported out of context at that particular time. I explained it several times at that particular time when it happened. First of all, I was misquoted on that particular matter. It was reported out of context at that particular point, and even when political leaders from the opposition raised the issue, I faced them and explained to them what happened, and they were satisfied. They didn't have a problem with that.
So what did
I
you
was
say?
even asked that question in Parliament, by the way. I don't understand why it's a non-issue. It was even raised in Parliament. Before a committee in Parliament, they asked me the question, and I explained to them. I told them, this is the context you have, this is the issue. I never said any of those things.
So what did you say?
By the way, because it happened in 2017, and it was one of those campaign moments.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't say that, because you have not a thug, that you know for sure. I didn't say that I'm a thug and so on. I can't quite remember the exact context in which it was, but the reporter who, first of all, I was speaking in vernacular.
Yeah.
The reporter who tried to report what I said in vernacular, as it were. And it was not saying, like, go and rough those people up and beat them up and so on. Like, how can you say that on a minister for security? How?
I wish you could tell me what you said, because I don't understand your mother tongue, but you're denying what is transcribed.
But I think I will get the transcript of what I gave Parliament when I went before Parliament at that particular time. But it was never like, find these people, rough them up and something like that. It was not that. Because I remember I went to Parliament on that particular issue, and when it was raised in Parliament, I explained it.
So what do you think of that organization? I don't know they exist anymore.
It's a very silly thing. That thing doesn't even exist. It's a proscribed organization. By the way, let me tell you the truth. You know, this is where we all go wrong. Media spends time on things that don't even matter. That organization doesn't even exist as I speak to you, and I don't remember when it was last proscribed. It wasn't even proscribed by 2 governments ago. It was proscribed by a government in the 60s and so on. So people like me who grew up around the 70s and so on didn't even have a chance of interacting with that organization.
You made reference to
it. It just became a byword, you know. I don't know, I mean, a byword that is used by people about to refer to, you know, rancor or something like that. It's like you can say Moran, you know, these are Morans, you know, these Morans and something like that. And if you were to go to communities which keep Morans and Moranism, as it were,
right, it
doesn't exist in the manner in which it existed in the 60s and the 70s. The people who are growing up these days who have never even seen those Morans.
Yet you made reference to it.
You know, Sam, that is actually a non-issue, to be honest with you. It's a completely non-issue.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a total non-issue. I mean, an issue that was dealt with, and I've never found anybody who cares about it, and who even cared about it at that particular time.
Okay. Yeah. That's your answer, which is fine. Now, let's talk about integrity and the questions of the rule of law. Just before he left office, there were reports about people that were being killed and dumped at River Yala. The count, according to the International Justice Mission, is at 36. No justice has been served on those